river, run, run through the hills. Run, river, run to the sea. Run, river, run to your place beneath the sun. Run, river, run over me.
Hi, this is Jan Lewis. Welcome to be my guest. Today we have, from Worcester, we have an author, Carlo Morrissey. I've got that right. And he has written two cool books. Lavender Skies. Did you design the cover yourself?
No, my cousin has done
Your
both
cousin
of them.
did.
Yeah.
How about this one? If you see your father, shoot him. Who designed that one? Your cousin.
Yeah, Louis Genitasi.
I haven't, in all my books, I have never seen a cover, if you see your father, shoot him. That's pretty cool. Which came first, Lavender Skies?
Shoot 'em came first.
What gave you this idea?
Well, it was the protagonist in the story is the kind of person who is very unassuming, the kind of person that people can just kind of roll over. But he's always trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And events happen in his life. He doesn't know who his father is, but it's Halloween. He's never seen his father. And his father, who was the opposite of the protagonist, Rodney, in the story, his father was a real sleazeball. And father dies, it's Halloween, and he comes back as a ghost in Rodney's kitchen. And
Rodney says, "Who are you?" I'm your father.
It's kind of like it's just one thing after another happens to Rodney. He gets, he's the only person who can see his father, and his father's there with him 24 hours. And Rodney keeps running into all kinds of problems. He gets kidnapped by gangsters. He has to escape them. He finds himself in one very precarious situation after another, done humorously, and in the end, his father's trying to give him advice, which really goes against the sense of decency.
Yeah, definitely. And he's taking care of his elderly mom.
Right.
And she's chronically ailing, so he leads a sedate life.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
What made you think of this?
Well, it's just kind of that whole idea about, I think the number of us, like in our age, as we get well into middle age, we find ourselves oftentimes maybe caring for older parents.
Yep. We
find ourselves maybe the only one involved, and maybe in doing things with the family, or to keep them, taking care of problems, and I just had that thinking, and I says, well, what happens to that kind of person? Put him in some situations, and he has to try to maintain that sense of decency. And also the book of Job, all of the horrors that Job went through, all of the tests of his faith, but Job remained. And so Rodney, not that it's religious, the book, but Rodney does remain true as far as that decent person.
Yeah.
And in the end, the good guys do win. So,
back. You know what? You don't have a picture in here of you.
No.
I don't think.
No, I don't think so.
It'd be a great idea.
Yeah.
Right in the back of your covers.
Yeah.
The back. I love this. All right, now. He's 30-something, and he's a salesman, right?
Right.
He spends his days caring for his chronically ill mother. He leads a sedate life. That is, until the ghost of the philandering father he never knew shows up. It's like all hell breaks loose.
Right.
This was your first fiction.
Yeah, I've written others. This was the first one to self-publish through Amazon.
Yeah.
And so I think it's been a process, Jan. You write, and then finally you start thinking, I think, we could do something maybe with this one. This one maybe is worth sharing. And so, and people have, the response has been very favorable,
Is that Batman in the eyes?
Well, the father comes back in a Batman costume.
Yeah.
Right. So the ghost comes back in a Batman costume.
I thought so. I don't know if it was just a design.
Yeah.
You did this yourself. If you see your father, shoot him. Carlo Morrissey. Carlo, how did they get a hold of this book?
It's through Amazon. You can get it through Amazon, and it's also at some of the local bookstores in Worcester. Root and Press on Chandler Street in Worcester, and Tide Pool Books in Worcester also has it, and in Webster, the Gourmet Bookstore on East Main Street.
Deb Horan is terrific.
Yes, Deb Horan's bookstore in Webster has it. Yeah.
Yeah,
so-
those are good places. You're going to be coming up to Tatnock, we all know, Westboro. When are you coming to be on?
It's, right now, tentatively September 11th.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay,
so-
that's a Saturday.
Right.
Are you at the 1 o'clock or the 3 o'clock?
That, I haven't gotten the times yet. It just got noticed a couple of days ago on it, so.
There's a huge room you could have in the back. Have you been there?
I did a book signing for Shoot Me, if you see Father Shoot Me, because that came out a couple of years ago before
Okay.
the pandemic, and
Yeah.
I had a book signing at Tatnick then. But Lavender Skies is new,
Yep.
and so there'll be a book
Were
signing.
you in the big room for this one?
We're up front.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes they do that. I know
Yeah.
I've made presentations in the big room. You do get some of an audience.
Yeah.
Some people aren't ready for that, so they sit up front. Now this one, Lavender Skies. Look at this. Now your cousin did this one too.
Right. My cousin Louis Genitaccio, he's an artist and does fantastic work, and so.
This one was more recent, right?
Right. That just came out in January.
Art, lust, revenge, and fortune. All these and more lie just beneath the surface in the sleepy Massachusetts town of Coventry. Take it from there. What happens?
Well, the main character, the protagonist, Barnabas Butterfield, he's approaching 60, and he's been a painter, oils mostly, all his life, and he's been undiscovered. He lives in an attic apartment with his wife, and he finally gets discovered, and that's when he has his painter's block, if there is such a thing. He cannot create once he finally gets discovered. And he's discovered by, there's a small liberal arts college in the town where he lives, and the head of the art department sees one of his paintings and she falls in love with it. So she promotes him to get this award at the college, which puts him in competition, not that he feels competitive, but with this poet on the campus who's a playboy.
Oh, yeah.
And he's got everything going. He's the direct opposite of Barnabas.
Yeah.
Barnabas is very low-key, very humble, in poverty all his life. And Connor Sloane Stone, the poet, has had a very, unfortunate life. He's been born into wealth, and he's had success, literary success. He teaches at a college. And what Connor does is he grooms co-eds, his senior class, and he has a relationship for 1 year, less than a year, with the young lady. And then when they graduate, they go their way, and he, the next year
He's
he
quite
starts
a guy.
another one. Right.
Quite a guy, yeah.
Unfortunately for Connor, this year, the girl fell in love with Connor, and she doesn't leave Coventry.
Yeah.
And so so Connor is the kind of guy too who really doesn't want to disappoint anyone, even though he's a real low-life kind of character. And so he makes up this crazy story to kind of work on her sympathies.
Oh, yeah.
She discovers the fraud, and and on it goes. And then the other thing with Barnabas, he does is his wife keeps telling him, more or less, I'm tired of clipping coupons here.
Yeah.
We've made it.
Yeah.
I don't care if you can't paint. You have to pretend like you can paint. You got to put it on the show. And so, but he finds his muse, and he gets back, and there's a very eccentric, very successful artist who is also going through difficult times, and he is inspired through Barnabas, and these characters, all of them. I mean, as far as in both stories, part of the thing is to try to get the person who really honest, the kind of person who we would not expect to be that successful finally does succeed.
Definitely.
In the first book, Shoot Me, Rodney taking care of his mother.
Yeah.
He does find that he's able to grow through.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Barnabas. He finally finds success in the art world.
Will Barnabas's years of trying to capture the beauty and power of a Beethoven symphony in an oil painting, will that pay off? Both of these main characters, it's like you said, you don't imagine that all this will happen to them. Not at all.
Yeah.
How can they get a copy of Lavender Skies?
And Lavender Skies is similar. It's through Amazon, and it's also the bookstores that I mentioned before. In Worcester, there's Tidepool Books on Chandler Street in Worcester, and Root Press up in the Tatnick Square on Chandler Street in Worcester. They are carrying that book as well. And the same thing in Webster, the Gourmet Bookstore in Webster.
Now, will
East Main
Tatnick,
Street.
when you hear that, will they take?
Yeah, Tatnick is Lavender Skies is the book that will be the book signing for September 11th is Lavender Skies, but I will have both books available.
You'll have both books. And downstairs, if you live near Upton or you want to come on out this way, we have the library dedicated local authors section, and Carlo will have his books down there for you to take a look at and borrow, whatever. So it'll be great. You had quite a background. You went to Worcester State first
Right.
and majored in,
Secondary education in history,
okay,
and I graduated in 1972, and there were many history teaching jobs available in the early 70s, and
Yeah.
so I ended up getting I taught it for a year in Australia. Australia needed teachers. Worcester and the Worcester County area wasn't looking
You
for
went to
history
Australia?
teachers. So I went to Australia for a year, taught high school
Yeah.
History, European history, and
in Australia.
you're right.
Did you teach them United States history?
No, European, mostly world history
Yeah.
and geography, and it was fine. It was a great year. It was
Yeah.
a great year. It was, the people were wonderful. I had a wonderful time. I was very young, and didn't really understand the opportunity I had. So I had a very good time in Australia. And
Yeah. Then you left.
then I left, came back, to Worcester, and the job situation wasn't much better. But I started working with kids with disabilities, and I got very interested in that. Then got a job at Worcester State Hospital. So I went back to got a second bachelor's degree at Clark University in psychology and English, and then I went on, got a master's in psychology at Anna Maria, and then on and on.
Are you working as a therapist at this point?
No, I was a school psychologist for the Worcester schools.
Yeah.
Before that, I had worked with the Department of Youth Services, as a clinical director and a program director. And then I went, after 20 years with Department of Youth Services, I switched over to Worcester Public Schools at Doherty High School. And then I retired. But I've been teaching part-time at Quinsigamond Community College.
Really? What have you been teaching?
Mostly sociology and psychology, yeah.
Now, Worcester State, you said you worked there. You mean the old one or the new one?
The old Worcester State Hospital.
What are
yeah.
they going to do with that building?
I don't know. I haven't been up there in years.
They tore down all those old ones, except
Right.
the clock tower, you can see
right,
that.
that's amazing.
I hear the new one, the new Worcester State, is really beautiful. They have, from what I gather, they have a whole real town type of thing inside of it to make people feel like they're really in real life. That's pretty cool.
That is.
I like that.
No, that is. Yeah. The last time I was up that way, I was still working in the Worcester schools because they had some programs on the campus, the hospital campus, and I had to see some students up there to do some
So you have a background in
evaluations.
history, psychology. You were also mentioned before we started the show. Carlos was telling me about you're interested in helping the kids that go to those, those behavioral type of schools, that type of thing. They're not always that successful, and I wonder why.
It's things that, what gets someone into those kinds of environment, Jan, it's so complex sometimes, the reasoning behind it, and then to put the services in place, it's difficult. I remember when I was working in the Department of Youth Services, I was working in a secure facility, and we worked with kids for several months, sometimes even for a few years. And you really kind of give them a lot of skills and get them ready, but then sometimes they go back into other environments. Those resources aren't available, or there's other kinds of...
They hit the pot, bar, that type of thing.
Things happen, and
What schools have you been to?
as far as...
As the I don't know how else to say, the behavioral, up in Lancaster, they have the Robert F. Kennedy,
Yeah.
That's pretty neat. That's a nice
Yeah,
school.
yeah. I left the Department of Youth Services over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So
Things
I'm
have
sure
changed.
things have changed a great
They
deal.
have. Yeah.
Right.
It's.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes it gets through to the kids. Sometimes it doesn't.
Well, that's just like with everything too. I mean, the other thing too is with all of us, behaviors are difficult to change,
Right.
and sometimes it just has to be the timing too. Things come to fruition at a certain time. Things are in place, and some good things can happen. And just the opposite too.
Yeah.
Other things go wrong, and
Did you know when you were in college, Carlos, that you would be an author someday?
Well, I had that interest, in my when I was a senior at Worcester State, Worcester State University. I had an interest. I got interested in a historical period, World War II, with the Russians killing so much of the Polish intelligentsia and officer corps and religious people and things like that, and blaming it on Nazi Germany and the Katyn Woods massacre. And so I did write a historical novel back in 1971, 72, which
Where'd it go?
it was really
You did
it
let
needs
go.
a lot of work, Jan. but I had that interest,
Yeah.
So so then I also, in my 20s, I did dabble with writing and also dabbled with oil painting and things like that. and drawing
Aha,
and
the
stuff.
lavender
Right.
skull. Okay.
Right. So I dabbled with that stuff. So it's kind of like, it just got to a point where when I was working at the Department of Youth Services and I was doing, some research on, and I got I got one article published in my own, just by myself, and a couple that I collaborated with some of my colleagues. But I just got tired of just, like, you're doing this work, real important work with these troubled kids, and then in your free time, you're researching more about this stuff. And I think I just got kind of at the point where I need a break, and I started thinking more about writing fiction. Because I always had that interest, plus I always enjoyed reading fiction.
Sure.
And so
Yeah.
I just started about 25 years ago writing
Yes.
fiction.
Both books have a touch of mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, have you got something new on the horizon?
I do. I've got another comedy, in that, there's a small press that's expressed some interest, so they're looking at some chapters. I'm not sure what will happen with that, or I may end up going through Amazon. It's another comedy with an unlikely hero, but he kind of rises to the
I like your
occasion.
stuff because this is stuff I've never read before, and any of the guests we've had.
Yeah.
They've got an unlikely hero who's kind of under happenstance, gets in all the stuff. So you've got a knack for that, and you're going to continue it.
But I'm also working on a very serious piece.
Yeah.
It's set in the late 1960s, where there's three narrators who, and so the story comes from their point of view. There's an alcoholic single mother, and she's really struggling. She's got a child who has severe intellectual disabilities, plus another child who she thinks is the rock in her family, but he's going through some gender identity issues before people were really comfortable with any of that stuff. And so he's on the brink of suicide, and she doesn't have any idea that's happening to her son. And then there's another character, she's in her late 30s, a career woman in the late 60s, when they weren't really supposed to be career women. You're supposed to get married or stay home and take care of your parents, especially if you came from, and this is very much Italian-American, that culture. And so she's kind of coming to terms with her father who's dying, and so these different narrators, they kind of like their stories kind of merge together.
Is it going to be the type of thing where the chapters are by the different people?
Yes, yeah.
That I've seen that in books recently.
Yeah.
Sometimes I personally have a tough time with it.
Yeah.
Because I just get rocking and rolling with one thing, and next thing I know, someone else's name is on the
Right.
next chapter. But if
Right.
it's really good, if it's as great as these, and it grosses you, that's ought to be great.
Yeah, I hope so.
When's it
yeah.
going to come out?
Well, that, I'm about 275 pages into it.
That's
And-
all, huh?
Right, and it's still got, I'm thinking there's probably at least another 150 pages for
Yeah.
the first draft. So that one, that's more serious, that's called Feeding the Birds. I'm hoping it'll be done in a year or so. The other comedy I have is called In a Borrowed Suit. That might be out soon.
What's it called?
In a Borrowed Suit?
A Borrowed Suit.
Yeah, it's, yeah.
Another happy happenstance dude, right?
Yeah, right. He's a very much kind of a guy who's probably on the spectrum of Asperger's.
Yeah.
Very socially kind of challenged.
Can't look you in the eye, that type of thing?
Yeah, and he tunes up grandfather clocks. And his life really centers around his work and his mother, who's in a nursing home. And he visits her every day after work.
Yeah.
Well, the mother passes. And so this character, Raymond, he has to organize the funeral, and he has to bring his very successful sisters
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
And one crazy thing after another happens to Raymond.
So these are two books that are coming.
Yeah, well, one is done, and the Borrowed Suit is finished, and I'm not sure, there's a small press that is interested, expressed some interest in it, and if not, I'll probably go through Amazon, and that could be probably in the fall.
There's another, Steve Porter, he's been on here many times. He and his wife, Dawn, own Stillwater Press in Rhode Island,
Oh,
and they're very popular. And you might want to get in touch with him.
yeah.
He's been on the show. Many of the authors that he knows have been on the show. Do you go to any of the author fairs? Anything like
I
that?
haven't,
Oh, you'd love it.
yeah.
Oh my God! It's every December. It wasn't last year because of pandemic, but every
Yeah.
December in, I think it's Cranston, Rhode Island. They have something on roads on the Pawtucket. It's a huge, like a big room. I mean, huge. I've talked about this before. I walked in there. I was absolutely overwhelmed. Wall to wall, aisle after aisle of authors from all genres. You're sitting next to somebody who's totally different than you are, which is great. I could not possibly get through every single author there. I talked with one of the authors, and she said, "I'm overwhelmed too." And you feel so bad. You
Yeah.
go by their table, and you're like, "I want to talk to you, but I got to." Oh my God! Danversport has a great one up in Danversport, Mass. It's a beautiful ballroom, overlooks the yacht club. That one's not as overwhelming. It's big, but it's not overwhelming. This one, and if you connect with Steve Porter, he runs it, and it is amazing, mega. You meet a lot of other authors. I'll tell you what, you'll meet a lot of people. That's a story for a different day.
Yeah.
Okay, Carlo, how do people get Lavender Skies, and if you see your father, shoot him?
Well, they're both available, as I said, at Worcester, two of the local Worcester bookstores, Tidepool Books on Chandler Street in Worcester, and Root and Press Books and Cafe on Chandler Street up near Tatnick Square, and also at the Gourmet Bookstore in Webster on East Main Street in Webster, and also on Amazon. They're available on Amazon.
Do you have any particular age group that you're trying to, or is it just about anyone?
I think it's general fiction, and I probably, I think some of the content might be for later teens or
Yeah.
adults, more adults than
I can see
than
this.
kids.
I mean, people, my authors look at me and they say, "Why are you going to send me to a senior center?" I'm like, because seniors read too,
Right.
I sent one over there. I think she only brought 10 books with her, and they were gone.
Yeah,
This type of thing, if you see your father shoot him, I know they'd love it. And then also Lavender Skies, don't forget, I mean, the seniors have grandchildren.
right.
And well, gee, their daughter might love this. And next thing you know, you've made more sales. It's amazing. I don't think a lot of people realize that. They read too.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
sure. And of course, there's the libraries. You can get scheduled there, bookstores, cafes now, coffee places, things like
Right.
that. There's a ton of places
Yeah.
all over New England.
Yeah,
Some authors don't want to go too far. Others say, "Yeah, just send me everywhere."
right.
just how far they want to go.
Right.
Have your family read your books?
Oh yes, I've been lucky in so many ways. But as far as with the writing,
Yeah.
I've had some real loyal kind of followers who, people that
Yeah.
and they'll say to me, well, what's the next one? What's the next one? Which is great.
That's a good sign.
Oh, it's very nice.
You've got your own style.
Right. Thanks.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Next time, for God's sake, put your picture on and
Yeah.
come back so people can see you. Now, online, you have a site, right?
Yes.
Tell them about that.
Well, there's a website, as far as you can access through it, and unfortunately, I'm not. I don't really have it with me to
It's okay.
how to get it. But if you wanted to send me an email, I'm just happy to. It's
Tell them your email.
cfmor@aol.com or cfmor50@gmail.com. Either one.
So they can reach you that way.
Yes.
And if somebody would like to have him come speak and share about his books, you could be reached that way too?
Oh, definitely.
Definitely.
Yes.
How far would you be willing to go?
Well, what's a 5-hour drive from Worcester?
Oh,
So let's say most
5?
of New England.
Well,
No,
okay.
really. No, the thing is, Jan, at least from my perspective, I mean, I write and I'm still teaching and
Yeah.
I do volunteering and I'm pretty busy with a couple other for people, as far as, and so I'm not really that good at finding out opportunities to
Yep.
promote my books.
Yep.
So if there's an opportunity, let's say in New England, I'll go.
Oh, that's what I mean. Like,
Right.
you'd stay in
Yeah.
Massachusetts,
Yeah.
maybe go to Rhode Island.
Oh, definitely.
Before we close, I want to know, because that's such a great thing about the fellow who was taking care of his mother. Did you go through that yourself? Often an author will write about that.
There was a time when I wrote "Shoot Me," See a Feather Shoot. Yeah, we had my wife, who's since passed. She was, struggling with different, and then we also had her mother living with us.
Yeah.
And I was working plus, full time plus teaching,
Yeah.
and it was a real, a lot
You've
going
had
on.
firsthand
There was a lot
experience.
going on.
Yeah.
And comedy, writing comedy,
Yeah.
maybe helped me kind of get through
Did
some
they
of
get
that.
to read your books?
My wife did.
Your
yeah.
wife did?
Yeah.
Oh,
The
wow.
Shoot Me, not Lavender Skies, because that just came on. Yeah.
Well, you've got a style and you're going places.
Yeah.
Because, you can tell some authors kind of go all over the lot. You've got a style. You've got the main person is like kind of oh, it happened again, type of thing. Thank you for being with us. We'll have him back on again, all right? You got
thank you.
1 or 2 books coming up?
Yes.
And we will do that.
Well, thank you, Jan.
All
Thanks
right.
so much for this.
Thanks for coming
Right.
on.
Thank
We'll see you next time and be my guest.
Thank you.
Riding on a shooting star, heading out toward a dream. Tomorrow's even closer than it seems. Moving through the cloudless sky,